Hey everyone, welcome back to this channel where all we do is talk about MacBooks, MacBook repairs, and lots of other fun things on this channel, right? Not all MacBook repairs, we do a lot of, most of them are. And again, we're making this another video because this is a MacBook repair. So I got an interesting one. I originally wasn't going to make a video about it because I was like, it's one of those, but I thought you guys would actually find this one a little bit entertaining. I do have it at least partially open here, a MacBook. This one actually went into another shop first, and they did a replacement for the Palmrest and I think just the whole entire Palmrest because the touch bar wasn't working. And now, behold, it comes to this store, and you're thinking, well, what happened in the meantime? Well, the customer says that when he got it back, the touchpad wasn't working, and for some reason it's not working, right? So we're going to figure it out. So let's go ahead. I have it partially open here. I'm going to at least turn it on. Let's go ahead and check the symptoms of it. And see what's going on. But I do believe he did say the touch bar is working now, but there's a problem with touchpad. So let's go ahead and see what's going on. Let's go ahead. We're going to plug it in, and I'll show you guys what I'm talking about. I'm going to hold down the option key, and that's going to get me to a boot part there. Okay, so it comes up, and we should get a boot menu. Yeah, we get it there. So that means the keyboard does work. Caps light comes on. But we'll wait for this to load because it needs to load first before a trackpad will actually come up, or at least see. So there's a cursor in the middle, and we see that that's not actually loading, and we have it plugged in here obviously too. We have it partially plugged in, but obviously like the whole thing, but it doesn't work. Now when you have one of these, you do have to have the trackpad connected as well. You have to have the trackpad connected at least for the keyboard to work as well. So we know at least the trackpad connections fine. At least that part's fine, or at least the cable seems to be okay, but there's another problem. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to shut this off. So we did notice, obviously we took out the board, and immediately, I did see something on the board anyway, but we'll talk about it in just a second. But we see something like this, right? We see that there are some gold stickers. This fully has been, looks like fully replaced. It looks like this part, right, the battery, keyboard. A lot of times when you do the keyboard too, you don't just do the keyboard, you do the top cover piece, but that wasn't his main problem. His main problem was close to the touch bar. Touch bar was the main problem for it going there. Now you wonder why would you replace the whole thing again? When you have one of these for the touch bar, most of the time, just because of the way they are, this is glued a certain way. I mean, you can technically remove it, but sometimes there can be problems with it. And it's usually better just to get a top cover when you do these type of replacements. It's not super easy. It's very delicate to damage this, and it's not about that. It's about this glue being absolutely perfect, especially on a touch bar when you have a touchscreen, because people are tapping it. So usually a lot of people get the top cover piece. So I don't blame them for that if they want to do that, but they're having a problem now because everything got replaced. We don't have the original trackpad or original trackpad cable. We don't have anything else original. They just came here right after that. So why the touch bar wasn't working in the first place? Because obviously we had the board out, and of course, what do you know? There's a board problem with this one. We have the two connections here. They're for the touch bar input as well as the touch bar LCD. And we see close to this area up here where it is that there's a little bit of actual corrosion there. Probably isn't a super big deal because it doesn't look to be super impacted, but that's not obviously, I mean, that's probably obviously why they got replaced in the first place, because there's obviously a liquid spill. So now that goes into it is one interesting thing, right? If it was liquid spill, the trackpad was working before. All right, so if we flip it over, it's kind of noticeable here. There is a little burn here. It's going to be really hard to show under the camera. You might be able to see it, but it's a little bit easier to spot with your eye there. Just because it looks different than everything else, right? When you do like a visual inspection, you're looking for something that's abnormal. Since we look at this all the time, we notice it pretty easily, and we can look at least the trouble spots. And actually, I think it would be better for everyone if we just go into the microscope and stop yapping. Okay, so if I zoom in, you see that little bit of blue middle there? That's close to where the touch bar connection is. That can give a problem, right? It's a bit corroded there, huh? See that? It gets a little bit blurry. That's not our main point of concern. It is one of the concerns, right? And this part is actually right on the other side of where the battery connection is. Now, you're thinking, well, what does this have to do with it, and how do you know this is part of the trackpad? Well, that's a great question, and I have a great answer for you. We bring up our screen capture. Our screen capture just always so happens to have a board view, right? This is where our damage is over here, and lo and behold, what does it say? It says you don't really have to fully understand these board views to at least tell you what's going on, because if you look, what does it say? It says at the very end of it, it says PB5V G3S T-pad. And what could T-pad possibly mean? Trackpad. Oh. And then look at right next to it, right on the other side of it. It says PV5VG3S T-pad connection. Yep, that's correct. There's another T-pad connection, right? And there's a ground on this side. So probably that side's probably the least burned, or if not burned at all. And if we go back, that kind of makes a lot of sense now, right? And yeah, so that part seems to be a bit damaged. We know the one that's melted completely, that one seems to be obviously the main part of the damage there. Now it's interesting why this happened. Did this happen before liquid spill? Did it happen after? Did they struggle putting on the connection, or what could possibly be it? But we're not here to think why, we're here to fix. So focus on this, and I think we'll clean. There's just a little bit of corrosion on some little areas that's very boring. I don't think you guys really want to see me use a Q-tip or alcohol or anything just to scrub and clean away. So I'm going to be doing that, so make sure those are fine, because these don't look to be too bad. They just look at the areas, just be a little bit corroded there. Nothing too crazy, probably just a cleanup would be totally fine. We'll clean up those areas, we'll check out the boring part, and then we'll skip right to the fun part where we remove some bad components. You see this is burned very, very badly here. Component pretty much is already off. It was so loose anyway, and you can see the pads are completely gone. This is removed. This is pretty bad. So before we actually reconnect it, we need to clean this up first and make sure it's going to make a nice connection. So we're going to be adding some flux and seeing what we can expose, at least for the pads there, if there's anything, but it looks like there's nothing there. But we see a little shine there, and the shine's good. It's like digging for gold, right? You want to see that, and it's pretty much the trace. Now we need to recreate what the traces really are going to be, right? So we see the traces are actually right next to it. These are what the pads connect to anyway, so we need to build them here. We can dig a little bit for gold, as we like calling it, and we can attach it to where it was going to go anyway for the pads. So we're going to expose it here, and we see the trace lines. Now we're going to be adding some solder here, and that's going to help reconnect the component, right? Because it needs to connect to something. How's it going to attach? And you need to add solder to it, to the place. So we're going to be putting the component down here. Now there's going to be something that's actually kind of interesting, what we're going to be doing here. There's a reason behind it too. We're going to be connecting it, and you're like, well, how are we going to connect the other side? So something interesting here, when we're taking a look at these two components, you can see this side on this one, because we want to make sure that the connection is going to be good. You look at both of them, and they actually connect to the same exact thing. So these can be actually connected to each other because they're going on the same connection here. Now you can also look on the right to see where it's going. Obviously this side it's a little bit different because it's connecting to the component over here, and that's where we're making the trace line. It's going to connect to this. And if you look over here, this one's a ground, so we're not really worried about that side. But because the connection was really bad and where the trace is going, we can actually connect this component to this component here, because there are pretty much the flow of electricity is going to the same exact areas anyway, as you can see. And that's what this board view is really good for. It's just show the diagrams of where everything connects to, especially if you need to build traces or build anything else. It's really fantastic for that. So we're going to go back over. So we're going to build that bridge here, build a little connection. We're going to make sure that these two connect because they can, and they're going to the same spot. And this should work obviously for the trackpad. So we're going to finish up building this. The solder looks to be good. And now we're just going to go ahead and clean it up. And it's going to be really interesting. Let's go ahead and test it out. Okay, so we're in the boot menu there. Looks like it's working. It's good, very responsive. Looks good. So everyone, I hope you guys enjoyed watching this video on an A1989 2019 MacBook Pro with a trackpad issue. And it's a great example if you do have damage to maybe like a trackpad or a keyboard, and maybe that's not working. There can be other issues that are causing that not to work, not just a trackpad or keyboard issue. You can see this is actually a problem more with the logic board itself there, because the circuit is actually bad, not just the trackpad itself. So it's always good just to know that, and that's why it's a great example of that. You see another store tried that. They have this problem, but we had to fix it in the long run, right, because it's a board issue. So hope you guys are watching. If you did, please leave a like. It really does help us a lot. Subscribe for more content. See you guys next video. Thanks a lot, guys. Take care. Bye.